Thanks, and thanks again to the PO for hosting us. My name is Milena. I am artistic director of Invoke Festival, and I'm so glad that we have this very important topic this evening. We will start with a short video statement by Milena Paneva from the Austrian Trade Union. Enjoy.
My name is Milena Paneva, and I'm working for the Austrian Trade Union Federation, ÖGB, and I'm a legal advisor for labor and social rights. I make this legal advising in Bulgarian language. It's maybe an important point to say that you can receive on many places like legal advice, not in mother language, but in German language about labor law, but there are not so many places about receiving the information, also how to stay legally in Austria. The biggest groups who are coming are agriculture or cleaning, people who are coming to clean personnel, or to say care workers. It's also a big topic in our construction workers. There are not so many cases from people who work without documentation, but still it happens. Yeah, you start working and you start hard working. I mean, like 10 hours per day, and you don't have the time to think it over. And after a month, you are thinking about what's going on with the money, and you receive, for example, some money, but not what the agreement was. And you start like asking yourself these questions: Am I working here legally? Or how much I'm supposed to be paid? At the beginning, you're really fair and like you're really happy that you have at all a job. You are not you don't have these questions in your mind. You just start working, and after that, I'm coming on the second place after a month or something. These questions, or maybe you don't. Maybe you are registered somehow like a worker somewhere, but not on the right hours that you're working. Maybe you work 40 hours or more than 40 hours, but you still be paid and you are registered for 20 hours. That's bad for your social security and for your social rights. I think that you could be also like just like that member, but I mean, yeah, it's hard when you are not documented. You have to be documented somehow, because in Austria there are seven different trade unions. Depends on in which kind of sector you're working. And the thing is that about the people who are coming to me, they are not necessarily members. They could be members if they want to be. It's a hard sector. These people are working hard. They don't have the time to invest, to work to learn the language, or maybe they will change the country after, I don't know, a year or something. So it's about money, about family, about that's your time that you invest learning a language. I can really say that if you are here, you receive more or less the same thing, like people who are native here. That's what we are, our aim, what we want to achieve. Actually, we are trying to achieve. If we are talking about women, we have many are working like housefrau, and it's pretty hard because they are in closed doors. You can work everything. You are, for example, you are supposed to work like 5 hours to clean, or it's always it's not really clear what exactly you are supposed to do. Sometimes it's about you're employed to clean the house, but at the same time there are kids. You're supposed to take care of the kids. You are living in this household, and then the family who are living with, they're saying, yeah, we are supposed to not to give you the whole salary because you're living here. So these costs are for us. We are paying that for you. Though there we can really see people who are undocumented. They are working without any kind of registration, and they are afraid to say something because they will lose also the place where they live, and they will be on the street. But that was a question that I was asking myself since I started this work. Why it's so hard? But actually, I know I have many answers after 7 years working in this direction. First of all, there is a problem. This is a topic about the different standards of living in different countries. You're coming to Austria, you are bad paid, like not more than the minimum wage, minimum standard of living, this Mindestsicherung standard. At the end, when you pay your taxes, when you pay the social security, what you receive at the end, it's pretty nothing. But you're still happy because in Bulgaria, the standard of living is lower, so you can take care of your kids, and till the moment that this is such a big like hole between the European countries like Bulgaria, Serbia, or Bosnia and Herzegovina, or it doesn't matter. I mean, these kind of countries, Romania, we cannot really, the trade unions, we cannot do in this direction a lot of things. People are afraid to, for example, another point, people are afraid to use their jobs. They are coming to Austria, they start working something, they know they are not paid, they know their rights. I mean, they are supposed to be paid, but they are saying, okay, but still it's more than in our home country. So we tried, for example, to do a little bit of organization with care workers, Bulgarian care workers. And there it's pretty hard just because they are not the whole time in Austria. So they're here, they have different rhythm, working rhythm. Some of them are in this period here, then some of them going back to Bulgaria, and they are not at the same time in the same country. You have to change the legislation when we're talking about the care workers are mostly women, mostly I can talk about the Bulgarian care workers, but I think that, but most of them are also in pension age. That's a working pensionists who are receiving small money, small pension in Bulgaria, and that's why they are forced to work after this year. For example, 70 years old is taking care of one 80 years old patient. About Corona, it changed for worse the things. I can for sure tell this for migrants who are coming for the Beratung. Many people, for example, for seasonal workers, that was pretty bad. All sectors were closed, like hotel, gastronomy, and people have for a long time no job, no secure thing, and many people went back to Bulgaria at this period. I can say that, but now they are coming back. There is always about this fear that they could, when they speak too loud and want too much. Of course, for example, Austria can make a contract with some Asian country, and they will bring some people from Asia, give them the permission to work here for pretty less money. Till now, I spoke about the people who have access to the market, and still we have this big problems, big topics. If you don't have the access to the people, to the labor market, then you are in the more in the hand and from your employer, just because he's supposed to or she's supposed to organize your documents about working legally here, and you are supposed to also work in special branches where there are no Austrian citizenship who wants to work in this kind of area, and that I think that it's pretty crazy. But people still find, they will always find, if you're a migrant and if you want to work in Austria, it doesn't matter where, you always find a way. I mean, that's not the way, just saying you're not allowed to work here. They still work, but they work with such a bad conditions, bad paid, and it's also bad for the country, because the country doesn't, and the employers, they don't pay the taxes and the social security, so it's bad for the country actually at the end.
Well, it should be Ruth now, but okay, maybe I'll carry on then. Yeah, if that's okay. If that's okay for everybody. My name is Šárka Homfray. Similarly to Milena, I work in trade union. It's the trade union of Czech Republic. I have many roles there, and one of them is the deputy chairperson of the gender equality body that we have at the Czech trade union. One of the topics I deal with is the future of organizing, and I would like today to start with a few remarks on this account. I wouldn't call it a speech, but I gave it a title. And the title is a question. Is organizing for elites only? When Silvia Federici wrote her pivotal essay about wages for housework in 1975, she laid down a couple of theses that are still valid today. Her main point wasn't the fact that household work is also work, it's labor, it's not fun, though it was a cry for solidarity and organizing. We are all housewives, she wrote, and then she elaborated on that. When you have a formal working contract, an employment contract, that contract gives a worker a chance or some sort of foundation for a somewhat equal or fair relationship with the other party, with the party they work for. It's a shaky foundation, but it is a foundation nonetheless. You give work and you get money. A worker can be a postman today, a taxi driver tomorrow. His work is not his identity, according to Federici. Being a homemaker, though, was supposed to be a proper woman's identity. That's what every proper woman does. She takes care of her home and of her family. It's natural, and every proper woman has to do it. It's something so natural that it needs no compensation, no holiday, and also no working conditions regulations, because it's part of your nature, it's part of your life, it's what you love. So who would be so silly as to talk about money? The former workers could form a class and they could organize. And so should women, according to Federici, because we are all housewives. Organizing is the one less thing that no one can take away from you. Even if you are at the very bottom of the ladder and you have no other instruments to improve your lot, you can always reach out to other people who share that lot with you. A Czech writer, Klára Vlasáková, wrote a dystopian short story. In her story, the rich people have special houses protecting them from the heat that the post-apocalyptic climate generates. In that world, you can't live anywhere, only in those rich people's houses. The poor women clean these houses and they get raped by the owners. Women are always going to have it more difficult, and people's dwellings will always need some cleaning. We will all be housewives until the world ends, and we will always need to organize. In the more than 100-year-long history of union organizations, we went from illegality to internationally acknowledged legal rights and claims. Economical and social rights are part of many countries' constitutions, including the Czech ones. European law acknowledges the employee as the weaker party of the contract, and it also specifies who an employee is. Whoever has the proper contract can also have the proper right for proper organizing. Employees can form unions who have legally guaranteed rights for collective bargaining. In case of harassment, there are legal guarantees and mechanisms for their protection. But what if you don't have the proper contract? What if you're not an employee? What if you work in one of those precarious arrangements growing in numbers, where you have all the disadvantages and limitations of an employee, but none of its guarantees? What if you are a platform worker competing for click jobs? Or you deliver food on bicycles, or clean other people's homes, or take care of them or their children? From people in a relative safety, just trying to make a bit of extra cash, to extremely precarious economical migrants working as undocumented stay-in help, bordering on the verge of human trafficking. There are many people who do work rather than a business, yet legally they are considered self-employed at best. They can still organize, and many of them do, but soon they found out that law that regulates their struggle and whatever contract they manage to negotiate is not the law which draws from the decades of worker struggle. Their contracts may not be quite binding. Their strikes may cause damages that their employers could claim from them. They might be even considered illegal cartels. The European Commission is aware of these struggles and is looking for ways how to change the regulation and recognize the fact that economically active people don't always fall neatly into the two categories of contracted employment and licensed freelancing. The new directive proposal on platform work is the most detailed material, but there are others in discussion as well. For example, the extension of collective bargaining to self-employed freelancers. And it's us, the trade unionists, who need to accept this fact too. Practically no people in precarious working arrangements chose their way instead of standard employment. The possibilities in which they can contact each other may be limited by the fact that they work in other people's homes, or on the streets, or online. We have a responsibility to reach out to them and use our power and our past achievements to make sure that the precarious working class is not growing larger and more fragile than absolutely necessary. Thank you.
I will go next, and I'm sharing a slide with you. My name is my name is Ruth Khakame. I work for a trade union in Kenya representing domestic workers. I'll share photos with you to see where my inspiration has been drawn from. As you can see, my story in pictures, I'll go through them very fast. You can see all this. You can see where I am. You can look at all this, see all this. Now, why am I doing what I'm doing? I've worked as a domestic worker for 5 years after completing my A-levels, And I didn't choose to be a domestic worker. The circumstances surrounding my life made me opt for domestic work because I had not attained better qualifications for, and we didn't have finances to enable me join college to study my dream course, which was nursing. I decided to approach my trade union. I work as an organizer specifically for domestic workers and migrant domestic workers. I approached my union, they organized me, and they gave me a responsibility to mobilize other domestic workers in the estate where I was living. I did that for very few months, and when they realized the potential in me, they picked me from where I was working, from my employer's place, and made me a full staff in the union to work as an organizer to bring more domestic workers in the union. I've grown through the work because I've also been able to represent my trade union and fellow domestic workers at both national and regional levels. I do this because working as a domestic worker wasn't an easy job. I could wake up very early in the morning, do cleaning in the house, take care of all the children. We had a sick patient in the house that I was looking after. I had to water the plants around the homestead. I had to do laundry work. I had to cook. I was on standby for my employer who was working away. So most of the time when she's out of the country, I'm fully responsible for the family. I did this for 5 years when I joined the trade union. And part of my daily work includes organizing domestic workers, representing domestic workers. You realize that domestic work has a lot of work into it. Working for long hours, having very few employers pay better wages. Majority of domestic workers in my context are given very little wages. And the work that they do is not regulated. They also have verbal contracts. It is a fraction, like 5% of employers who will offer written contracts. Most of them are not entitled to annual leave. It is not a priority for workers to go and rest after working for the entire year. Even going for weekly rest, which is for 24 hours, it's still a bargaining for domestic workers to achieve, a right to go on rest. There's also, issue of a domestic worker becoming pregnant and they're not given some time to go rest. So most of them, because, the nature of domestic work, they can quickly be replaced. So you're supposed to hold into work no matter your situation. And you understand how being pregnant and the nature of a woman needing some rest. So most of them will have no option but to just give birth, rest for like a week and get back into employment just to secure their livelihoods and earn a living in their situation. You'll find that the domestic workers on the same time also are also entitled to social protection, and most of them are not given. Employers do not save for them. They do not offer medical care, so they purely depend on the government to intervene or relatives to intervene and fundraise for to take care of their health when they become sick. So with all these challenges around, there are over 2 million domestic workers in Kenya. But at the moment, domestic workers are still invisible. Every now and then we wake up to exploitations. We wake up to domestic workers being fairly dismissed from work. We wake up to having, domestic workers being abused. There are those that are, the environment that they're working in are very toxic. There's a lot of insults to it. There's a lot of, sexual harassment that most of them will opt to keep quiet because they want to secure their jobs. So all this in the name of wanting to earn an income, because majority of domestic workers stay in informal settlements. They are not able to even afford, the life of $1 a day. So they end up in the cycle of poverty because of the push and pull factors of looking for money. So yes, so all this and also, the mobility of a domestic worker being fragmented. Some will do domestic work today, tomorrow they decide to venture into small-scale traders, trying all hacks for them to earn a living. So all this inspiration has really made me want to organize more domestic workers so that we can have one voice and have us respected and treated with dignity and value as workers in the working force, just like any other workers. I tend to ask people, imagine a world without domestic workers. Who will assist the working woman with whom a domestic worker has made them push for, economies, go to work, attend to their events, go to their businesses, and leave a domestic workers in the hands of their children, trusting them with their homesteads, and taking care of the sick in their families, looking after the elderly family members, all in the name of care work. So I am a champion of domestic workers, and like we always say, for domestic workers to achieve decent work, then they're entitled to rest hours. It is a lot of work working in the confines of a home where no one is regulating. There's no labor inspection. The employer is free to make laws for you in their homestead. So we call on employers to ensure that domestic workers have rest hours after hours of working. Then they are given some time off to go and rest. When they've worked throughout the year, they are given some time to go on annual leave, to interact with their families, to attend to their other personal needs. They also accorded social protection so that when they retire from employment, there's life after work. They're also given fair wages that can sustain their living, wages that they can enjoy, waking up very early in the morning, working, making their work enjoyable. They can all give it back to the wages that they receive at work. They're also, enjoying fair hearing in terms of bargaining, in terms of negotiation for terms and conditions at employment. They're also given audience so that they can express themselves. Also on the issue of quality healthcare, that when a domestic worker is sick, when a domestic worker has a long-term, illness, they are given time to go, then their job is safe. They can come back to the employment and then they're still going with their job. And where they can't, they're given quality healthcare. They're also allowed to participate in activities of a trade union. Let them go to the trade union and learn about their rights. Let them learn about their welfare. Let them interact with other domestic workers in the industry. They can as well learn on, discipline and conduct at work. Let them be free to participate in the activities of the trade union, and as well as according them written contracts that clearly describe their terms and conditions of employment. We do all this because we realize that domestic workers need to be respected. People need to know that this is work just like any other. They are given, they're not treated like helpers. They're not treated like the poor. They're not treated like, there's no any other option to work because either you're a migrant worker, because either you don't have education, because you don't have skills to your job. They're treated, like workers just like any others. Then they're accorded protection within the jobs that they work. Are the issues of occupational safety and health taken care of? Are they also protected from any kind of, violence that may erupt at workplace? Are they psychologically, protected or oriented on the nature of their job so that it doesn't bring out, any other problems at work? All this is what we are educating people on. Also promotion of their jobs. Is it a job that is progressive in nature? Are they advancing in their lives? Are domestic workers also, opening up businesses? Are they buying homes? Are they educating their children to the highest level of education? Are they also, you know, enjoying what life has to offer? Are they owning vehicles? Are their businesses doing so well? Is their health improving? Can they, you know, graduate from one point of domestic work to the next and get better employment? Is it promoting their lives as human beings? Then another thing is to support their work, supporting and, you know, embracing that domestic work is work. And, you know, domestic workers are also workers, and they're entitled to you know, to fair treatment, and that there's no discrimination of any nature, regardless of the status they hold in the society. Are they fairly represented? When they seek for assistance, are they listened to? When you know, when anywhere they show up, are they allowed also to, you know, to have associations? Are they allowed to freely express themselves? Are they allowed to freely participate? Is there inclusivity of domestic workers in all the good programs we have for women, you know, for citizens, for domestic workers, for the vulnerable, for the informal economy? Are they part of these the programs? Then reskilling, you find that most domestic workers in our context, they are a bit illiterate. I wouldn't want to use that name. So most of them, you know, the nature of care work, they've been adopted into the sector, but they don't have any academic qualifications that will really give them a job in the formal sector. So we also encourage, you know, employers, governments to ensure that they have curriculum friendly on housekeeping or any courses that, you know, domestic workers can undertake, so that they also, you know, become competent and become expertise in also the jobs. And even as we, you know, we push for formalizing the domestic sector. Just like all other sectors that we, you know, we are always out here, the doctors that we know, the engineers that we do, you know, the teachers that we know, the lawyers that we know. We are calling for domestic workers to also organize and mobilize amongst ourselves, because domestic workers are very shy to, you know, to participate in activities of the trade union or to come together collectively, because of, you know, not loving the jobs and undermining, you know, themselves, and also, you know, devaluing themselves and not thinking that they are workers that who need to come out and organize. So we call domestic workers to organize and organize and organize for, you know, for us to talk about our issues and have everyone know who we are and why we really want to be recognized. We campaign for decent work, you know, the decent work agenda, whereby we want the sector to grow. We want the sector to be accorded social protection, you know, to be, you know, welcoming social dialogue in it, and also, you know, the issues of creating more employment within the sector that really adds value to the life of a domestic worker. And also lobby governments to recognize Convention 189 by ratifying it, which set pace for discussions and conversations around how the domestic sector can really grow and be recognized. Then more and more awareness to general public to realize the important role that domestic workers present in the society. That is my brief presentation. I'll be here for questions. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ruth, and also Šárka. I will follow. I'm not from a union. My name is Christina Braunersreuther, and I'm a care researcher and also an activist. And so I studied museum studies, and I tried to increase representation and for care work and also solidarity with care work. I made an exhibition called Hilfslinien. It's mainly about 24-hour care work, but also about care work in general. Why I choose 24-hour care work, also transnational care, called transnational care work, because it's mostly done by, as Milena said, women from mostly Eastern Europe, is because I call it multiple invisible work. For me, it's important to get confirmation that this important topic is talked about. It's talked about far too rarely, and it's also rarely reported in the media about it. There are some exceptions when this work is talked about, but it's mostly then when it's not done in the interest of the client. But then people don't really talk about it, they complain. And what around it is, it's so full of racist and balkanist stereotypes. And this is what I'd like to be avoided. Now I'll give you a short insight in the exhibition I made, and you can also see it here in Vienna. Oops. Yes, here you can see. This is was the original invitation to the exhibition. It's called Hilfslinien. In its original title was also Linie Pomoci, because it was an Austrian Slovenian exhibition in the Pavel House. And what you see here is the invitation, and I have it here. I try to switch to the next slide. Here you can see it's a little smaller, but you can see also the English title, Lines of Help. What you can see is the design of the exhibition. What you won't see is pictures of care workers, but it's not because they are not afraid of being shown. In the contrary, they're proud of what they're doing. They're but they wanted to, the care workers I was talking to, they don't want to show their clients. I didn't want the exhibition to be very individualized. I wanted to be more general, so I got to know a comic drawer, the artist Tina Fetz, and she made these drawings of not the women. I never sent her photos. I just talked to her and described her situations. And this is what she showed, the situations the women, mostly female care workers, are in. As I told you, I talked to a lot of transnational care workers from different countries, and I invited them to participate in the exhibition. But what they told me a lot about their situations, but they told me, we are carers and we do our work. And you are the curator, so you should do your work. So, and they have enough work. So I took this to really do my work and make the exhibition. And the first slide on the exhibition is to show people what care work does mean. So everybody, mostly everybody, and I think especially most women are doing care work in very different forms, in childcare, in care for elderly, in cleaning and shopping, and also in caring for plants and the whole household. This is why domestic work is also part of care work. And here you can see a picture of the original exhibition in Pavel House. The care work, if it's not done by the so-called housewives, it's done by professional care workers from other countries. And this is the care chain. It's a very it's mostly a female care chain. It doesn't go from the housewife to the husband most times. It goes from the housewife to another woman that comes from another country. And this is called the care chain. And I wanted to explain this. And in the exhibition, you can also see some artworks. One is from Milena. You can see it in the behind, the red toilet and the yellow washing basin. Yes, here you can see the care chain again. And in the bottom, there is the elderly statistics where you can see we are having more and more elderly people. So we really do need more care workers. And we can't close our eyes by this. And here we can see the transnational influence. This is drawing of the statistics where the care workers are coming from to Austria. Most of them are coming from Romania, very many from Slovakia, but also from Poland, Bosnia, Serbia, Bulgaria, as Milena said in the beginning. And yes, I told you that the care workers told me what I should show. And one theme I would never have shown if I made the exhibition as a curator without all the interviews I had is to talk about bureaucracy. But this was a main topic. I talked to them because one of them here, I have a quote. She told me, before I knew I had to change nappies, but and she meant all the bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy turned out to be a very racist system. And here you can see how it's shown in the exhibition. And you can see the faces of the care workers, how they look like, because many of the documents are just in German language and they have to fill out, and all the contracts sometimes are only in German language and they can't read the contracts. So situations follows like Milena told. They don't know what they're exactly earning is, what their working hours are, and so on. Here is another slide, another picture. We did the original exhibition in 2020, and before the planned opening, the Corona crisis happened, and we decided to take Corona in the exhibition because in this time, the awareness for this transnational care work increased. Just because the care workers couldn't come anymore. And this was a huge problem. Here you can see another picture of the exhibition, and the orange sheets you can see on the walls are about Corona, because we just take them on the walls to be able to change them if some laws change or some so we wanted to be flexible. Here you can see them again with the topics of the exhibition. The topics are, I will tell you later, are language, family, overall, so private sphere and integration. This is the slide about what the work of the 24-hour personal care workers looks like, what they are doing. They are doing like cooking, washing, but a very important work is also just to be there for their clients, to provide stability, to watch TV with them, to talk to them, to look at photos, but also do some medical care, even if they are not allowed to do all the medical care, but the things like addressing them or giving them their medicaments at the right time, which is very important for people with dementia, they are allowed to do. And the other thing Ruth also had it in her slides is appreciation. That is much too less for the work they are doing. They are not often seen in public because they are living in workers. And this is why they really don't, they're always there. They're there day and night. And especially for people with dementia who sometimes don't know day and night times anymore. They get awake in the middle of the night. And I really like this picture because they're not staying awake because they want to annoy somebody. They're just awake and they're watering the flowers and try to cook and something, and the care workers are always there, and they have to stand up and have to be there in the next day again. And some of them, I talked to most of them after their working period, and some of them, they were so tired because they're mostly 2 weeks without sleep. Another topic was the privacy. You can recommend that they rarely don't get privacy if they are living in the household. So many of them, in the few hours they can go outside, they really go outside. Even there is bad weather, they go for a walk in the park because they need this to also to clean their minds. Another topic was integration, and integration is very hard because the transnational migrants, they are not migrants like other migrants who live in a country and also have spare time there. Most of them are in the house for more or less 24 hours. They are brought by buses, they are brought back by buses, so they have no chance to integrate. The only way they are doing sometimes is to go shopping for their clients, but mostly not much more. Yes, and in the end, I also wanted to talk and what is the future of care. And I have this with a question mark here. This is what you see here is a care robot. It's called Pepper. it's already in use in some elderly homes, but I think everybody will understand the robot cannot be a proper care worker, because a robot can never be emotional. It can open doors, or it can play music, or also in some elderly homes there are very nice YouTube videos from Japan where robots are dancing with the elderly patients, but that's not all. So I told you I'm not only a researcher and exhibition maker, I'm also an activist, and this was also part of the exhibition. We had an artist, Adina Kami, and she made these posters for us. And we placed them around town, which say "No more bitter pills." It's about the Corona crisis and about what the IG24. It's kind of a union for the transnational care workers. Wants to have for a better working situation for the transnational workers. Yes, and this was part of the exhibition, but not only in the exhibition. This was very important for us to go out. And then we got the chance to go out further. Here you can see a picture of the opening last week in Schönborn-Park here in Vienna. It's next to the Volkskunde Museum. And the kids in front are just playing. They're just having fun. It's not and here you can see the exhibition in the park, and you can see people coming into the park and watching the exhibition. And this was very important for me, not to be only in a museum where people have to have an interest and to go in and see all this. No, people coming to the park should see this. And in the back, you can also see from the opening, this is a musician, and she made a performance for us with household articles, and also her violin and her voice. And this is the question we always ask in the exhibition and also outside: who cares? Who cares about care work? Who cares about the elderly people? Who cares in general for the situation in society we have? Here you can see the who cares with the Volkskunde Museum in the back. And the exhibition is also in the Women's Museum in Hittisau in Vorarlberg. And also there we ask who cares. In the back is the museum, but you can see the exhibition is it's also outside the museum. So people who are coming to this, it's a village. Everybody, it's behind the school, between school and the museum. And what you can't see here, there are goats. So it's a very rural landscape, but everybody can see. And you can also see if somebody's now interested now and can't come to Vienna or to Vorarlberg, you can also see the exhibition. We brought it to the internet, and mostly everything what's in the exhibition is also in the internet. It's www.hilfslinien.net, and it's in 3 languages. It's German, English, and Slovenian, and if we get some more money, maybe we do more languages, because it's an important topic, I think. Thank you. So are there any questions to ask to Ruth? I think she's still here.
I have a question. I don't know what Convention 189 is actually. If Ruth can explain.
Convention 189 is an International Labour Organization convention that was ratified in 2013 by the ILO member states. And the discussions for the convention started in 2009 when domestic workers in the world started and
Yeah, I guess we could maybe wait a bit, but as we don't have moderator this evening, it would be nice to hear from Ruth. We didn't hear you quite well. Could you maybe
yeah,
repeat?
I lost network. So I think I'll switch off my video for clarity purposes. So the convention was adopted and it recognizes domestic workers as workers, and it calls for promotion of decent work for domestic workers. It all started when the conversation started when people realized that there's a group of women who work in the confines of households, but no one recognizes that they are workers because they're on payroll. Those that are given on daily rate, there are those that are paid at a monthly rate, there are those that are paid as casuals for only hours. But it's a working force. It's a movement with quite a number of workers in it. So it's recognized that these are workers just like any other workers. The convention has provisions on terms and conditions of employment for domestic workers, and part of the provisions are around issues that our laws overlook, like issues of most engagement of domestic workers contracts is on a verbal kind of or implied kind of engagement, but it specifically calls for written contracts so that it has a job description, a clear set of terms and conditions, remuneration, how someone is supposed to be paid, issues of in-kind kind of payments whereby someone will take advantage. If they buy you a gift, it is deducted from your wages. It is very clear on how payment is supposed to be made to domestic workers. Issues of rest for the workers, issues of migrant workers, child domestic workers, regulation of recruitment agencies that deploy domestic workers to employment, to employers' premises. So it looks at the critical issues that a domestic worker undergoes in the place of work and recognizes that homes where domestic workers work, those are their offices, and that's where the employment relationship begins. Yeah. So it's a really detailed convention that specifically talks about domestic workers, and it recognizes domestic workers as workers. Yeah. It is there in, you can look for it in Google, and it will bring all the information and details. Yeah.
And during these preparations for this event, we were actually talking all together about this problem and this split that the care workers, at least in Austria, are self-employed, and which kind of problems this makes for ensuring their rights. And then there is something that Šárka said, which was very interesting, about that self-employed people should also have a kind of collective bargain. So can you maybe tell us more about this in connection to your statement?
Sure thing. Before I answer that question, I would like to point out one thing. In Czech Republic, we don't have much experience with domestic work. Specifically, there's probably not on general basis. We don't have like living domestic workers. You may have an occasional contracted lady who comes over every 2 weeks to clean your house, and that's about it. Yeah, while lots of Czech women actually go to work abroad, to Austria, to Germany, specifically to just across the border to German countries. So from our point of view, the experience is sort of second-handed, which doesn't mean that it's not legally relevant, because across the European Union, labor law is fairly harmonized, and so are the problems. Yeah. So what I'm going to speak about to answer your question, I'm going to illustrate on Czech cases, but of other professions. There is a Czech company that delivers your shopping by car. Yeah, you online order all your groceries and they bring it by car to your house. The drivers are self-employed. And about a year ago, well, probably the last few months ago, they all of a sudden were gotten an email that their remuneration system is going to change to sustain their income, which relatively to Czech general income was fairly high, but still to sustain their income, they would have to work much more. Certainly not 40 hours a week, which is the limit for employees. And they were obviously quite upset, yeah, because they were just, like the company told them this is how it's going to be. Nobody asked them anything, and they were starting to look for ideas what to do. And one of the things they decided to, they got in touch between themselves and decided to make some sort of collective action. Yeah, they wrote a letter to the company that they disapprove of that, and they came to a meeting and they threatened them to not come to work next day. Well, the company's lawyers told them that they can't do that because in their contracts that they have, as in one business person between another business person, the driver and the company are two business entities, not employer and employee formally. They state that they're going to do so-and-so hours at least a month, that they're going to work shifts that are set so-and-so many days in advance, that they can't change them, and they can't quit the contract earlier than within 30 days. And if they do go on strike, or whatever you call it, or stop working, because there are not employees who by law are protected in the case of a legal strike, the strike would be considered illegal, and whatever damages they do, they have to cover legally. They'll have to just pay it back. So they found out they can't do anything. Their organizing was not good for anything. This is a system, the sort of bogus self-employment, and really you're not a businessman, you're just self-employed, or you're pretending to be a businessman because you save on taxis and the other party also save on taxis. It's only good when it's good weather. With the first drop of the rain, all the things come down. But that's been criticized for about 30 years since the revolution, when this sort of system came to existence. But it's always been criticized on the individual basis. Yeah, okay, you save on taxes, but you don't get maternity leave, for example, or maternity allowance. You save on taxes, but you don't have any paid holiday. But then it's, in this case, we found out that's, you know, it's not good even on the collective basis, that it's really disadvantageous. That has been never discussed before. And so if you talk about collective action and organizing as, you know, that last thing you can do if you don't have anything else to do, well, these people can't even do that because they have the wrong type of contract. You may think, yes, they should have signed it, but the information available to general public that would understand the differences between law is not that common. You know, nobody can really just read the contract and realize, oh, but if we want to go on strike, we can't. Yeah, because that's not what you do. And also they didn't have the negotiating option. The company just gives out contracts on this basis. Funnily enough, around the same time, they were expanding to Germany, and the information about what they're offering the German drivers obviously came to Czech Republic, and it's certainly not something they, you know, it's incomparable. Yeah, they wouldn't dare do the same thing in Germany. And that's even more so upsetting. So there have been some claims to the state authorities. They did some inspection because, you know, this sort of employment is actually illegal. They got fined, and that company's owner at the same time got some sort of Entrepreneur of the Year award, probably so that he's not too sorry for himself. So this is how things work. And this is the case, obviously, not just with the drivers. It's the food deliveries, it's the platform workers, and it's with those cleaning ladies that usually work for some sort of platform agency that sends them to the house. Yeah, they are not really independent. They are regulated. And if there is a problem, or if the company that gives them the jobs, if they decide to change their remuneration or increase their hours or whatever, they usually can't do anything, only quit. So I hope it answers your question.
Yeah, so I will just continue because I guess I have many questions. To Christine, you have been working with IG-24, so the organization which is not exactly the trade union, and this is precisely what Šárka is saying. And they have this campaign now which is ongoing about kind of closing or this self-employed, so the work of care workers regulated according to the self-employed law. And what are their opinions on this? How do they see themselves in terms of where do they stand? Because when we were kind of meeting before, we said, yes, artists are also self-employed, but artists and generally like people who work in the cultures, they don't like to see themselves as workers, while the self-employed care workers see themselves as workers. So how do we, what is your opinion on these differences? And
what I say and what also the IG-24 says, the care workers and especially the 24-hour care workers, it's false self-employment because they can't decide what they work, they can't decide when they work, they can't decide, oh, I just want to go home, there is not much to do because their homes are hours away, they have to stay in the household. So this is why IG-24 wants, they want to go have one care worker who wants to go to court to have a trial to fight to be employed. There was this legal process once in Germany, and in Germany there is more employment for the care workers, but it's also it's not the situation of the workers there is not much better, because the 24-hour care workers are employed, but they have contracts for only 40 hours or 38 hours sometimes. And the contracts say they live in the house, but they only work for half an hour for making breakfast. Then they have time off. And then they are cleaning dishes for half an hour. And then they have to dress the person or doing shopping. And this is not a real legal contract, because they are there all the time. They have to be there for 24 hours, and they are not paid for the night hours if they have to stay up because the person doesn't sleep. Or so what they're fighting for is to have better working situations, to have more care workers, so they can really have times off. They should have better payment, because in their situation in Austria, I have to say, from the law, there are two possibilities. They can work self-employed, but they could also work employed, but no one would employ them, because this this form of working cannot be legal. So it's a huge difference in between, like you said, artists or really self-employed people. But for me, I don't like this division so much, because both working situations for care workers and for artists, they're very precarious situations, and they're all not paid well, and all of and also the love for what they are doing or for the people or is always told them, oh, you do it because you have to stay up the whole night with your sick child because you love your child. Yes, you will always do, but no one is giving appreciation for this. Just the child, of course, but not your employer. You have to get up and go to your real work the next day, even if you stayed up the whole night with your child. This is why I think all precarious workers, even if they don't see themselves as workers, but all precarious people should be solidarized and should work together. And there are, like Wienwoche is a good example. It's an art festival, but it's about work, and it's about precarious work and also about care work. And there are lots of artists who are working with care workers or having this thematize this in their works of art. And I think this is very necessary to be more present, to be the people who making problems visible. This is what I think.
The first time I met Ruth, I will continue. And if you have questions, please, I mean, like, she was talking about, I asked her, who are the migrant workers in Kenya who come, and the community, as she put it at that point, I'm not sure whether it changed or not, was Filipino community, which we also have here in Vienna. For like question for all three of you, do you think it's worth to kind of use like healthy labor force to sustain lives of old people, like, you know, like all these young, wasted, not self-care lives to sustain the lives of EU citizens. It's for me a big question. And this is not that I like discriminate old people. Like, I'm very much interested in the topic, and probably next year we're going to work with IG Bild and the Kunst together on their senior artist annual topic. But I was wondering, you know, there is so much, like somehow the people who do care work, also the maids, domestic workers, there is no place for their lives somehow. They're always serving and sustaining lives of others. And is this a sustainable way to do it? So
if you ask me first, there is only one solution. Care work should never be wasted time. If you appreciate the work and you pay for it a reasonable price, then it's not wasted time. It's a yeah.
I would agree. In Czech Republic, most of the care that's taken that's taken for all the people that stay in their homes is done by their family, usually by the daughters or by the daughters-in-law. And part of my legal work that I do is advising these informal carers about the right and about the social security and about money they can claim. And that is certainly the hardest part of the work I do, because you get the stories of people who are feeling sorry for the mothers going down with Alzheimer's disease, for example, who are overworked, totally underpaid, who are struggling to keep their job because they can't leave the job because the support is not, for the care is not large enough, who can't get a social worker or health worker to help them because those are so underpaid, they're quite unavailable on the Czech market. So it's all, you know, on them. And they don't even have any formal status whatsoever. It's for them, it's not even a poorly paid job. It's just something that they do for pure love. And I do think that's the worst option that we have. The population is growing older. Yeah, the care work is good. The need for care work is going to increase, and we have to think about it differently. We can't just sort of throwing on related or non-related women for next to nothing money and expect them to care about the richer older people, because that's what's happening. But and I agree, the decent work and decent employment is the only way to go.
And I think in Kenyan context, one of the greatest challenges we have with migrant workers is the issue of documentation. As much as we have, you know, the Free East African Movement Protocol, we still have those that come in the country and they face, you know, arrest from police. There are those that come in because the Kenyan shilling in the region is a bit stronger. So they think coming to this end, it's a savior to their livelihoods, but they end up getting underpaid. So sometimes even affording accommodation here is very costly for the migrant workers. And, you know, they end up living in the market, staying in the markets. They cannot afford accommodation. They fear arrest, sometimes even having, you know, local administration and social workers approach them, they run away because they think it is an opportunity for them to get arrested and end results being deportation. So it is a very, you know, challenge for us to even approach them and start organizing them, because they think we are like, you know, the link between the police and the union. There's another interesting element that came from them, that they're even bringing in children to work as domestic workers by their mothers, so that the family can earn extra income out of, you know, releasing their children to work, which is against our laws, and it is highly illegal. So, but because they have no option, they have to hide. And they're not even given an opportunity to work in the formal sector. So most of them will end up in the informal sector, trying businesses, trying, working in the beauty industry, try hiding. It is not even comfortable for them, lacking social protection, also, being taken advantage of because you fear being, going back to your country. It is just a whole discussion on, again, valuing their contribution to the society. Yeah.
There was like one very interesting sentence from Milena's video presentation, and that is that the state is basically losing a lot by not allowing that like people pay taxes or social like insurance. And during this conversation with her, she was mentioning that people, so when they get older and when they're supposed to go in pension, this is the moment which is really critical for them because they work the whole lives, but the life is just not secured afterwards. And this is one of the biggest problems of employment. So like, I really don't know how the self-employed care workers, like how do they even get like pension like how does this work? Like, do you maybe know? Can you maybe let us know? Yeah, so it's a general question. Ruth, you are muted.
Sorry. We have Kenyans that go work in the Middle East as domestic workers. And we were looking at their contribution to our economy. And it was, after some survey from the government, we realized that they send home lots of millions to their families. The worrying trend was that this money is not sent through bank account. It is a mobile money transfer. And looking at how the families, spend this money, it is circulating around, the social context, the informal settlements. They're not being subjected to any kind of taxing. They're not being subjected, they're not saving in bank accounts. They're not saving anywhere. So it is, it is a tax-free money. So when we are doing our advocacy and campaigns, we were just giving the government an analysis of how they can ensure that, as they promote, the care workers, they can as well earn, through taxing from them. But to realize it's a whole discussion and pushing even more because, they are not interested in the remittance of the taxes. But it is very true that people in the domestic sector are very mobile. Like I said, today they may decide to be domestic workers and they don't get enough money. Tomorrow they open up a small scale business. And it's very hard for them to remit taxes because remember, the businesses are not so big businesses that that have to register with Kenya Revenue Authority, for filing returns and taxing and all that. It is just operating within where they are staying, very small businesses, whereby there's not taxing allocation that is accorded to them. So it is something that we are pushing with the government to recognize the sector. And formalizing the sector, we will now then begin conversations around taxation, which add value to the government. Besides, the government relying on loans from the IMF, from the World Bank, we keep on struggling with other sources of generating income. When the government we're giving them an alternative of improving the state of workers in the informal sector. If it is businesses, if it is giving out, formalizing the sector and putting mechanisms in place that can follow up, on issues of taxation. So it's very challenging to even compel the workers themselves to think around taxing, because they say our wages are too low. The money that we we are, working around. It's very small, because if we end up being taxed at the moment, we lose it and will not be able to sustain our income. Yeah. Thank you, Jelena.
If there are no if there are no questions.
I just wanted to come to this point. I will try to read my translation. Can we say that domestic workers or care workers are outside of the banking system? This is one of the questions that I have talking about this topic. And do you know, are there alternative economy or organizations models for owning for domestic workers, small alternative economy organizations? For example, do you know some examples or some organizations that we can recommend or we can refer? If it's okay.
What's the question on those? Because
Yes, I think, but she's not.
not
Sorry, I had network problems. Yes. I think I missed your point, because I had my network was maybe if you can repeat that once again. I missed part of the question.
Can we say that domestic workers or care workers are outside of banking system, or is a play game? And do you know some alternative economy organizations models? For example, I just want to ask about the retirement, the jobs,
yes.
and the future also for domestic workers.
Yes, if you look at the domestic sector, majority of them actually rotate within the cycles of poverty. So they fear even out microfinance, economic empowerment for the sector. They'll welcome the idea, but practically they'll say that they receive so little wages. Like in Kenya right now, the minimum wage is like 140 euros. So that is way too low to think of paying rent, paying school fees, food, transport, and health, because they don't have health covers. So most of them will opt to keep the money under their mattresses than taking it somewhere to save, because they believe for them the economy is like from hand to mouth. I have to get money today to sustain me for today. They do not think about tomorrow and what tomorrow unfolds. That's why we keep on, advocating for their social security, so that they can have, as they retire from employment, there's something that they can take home with. With the domestic sector, we work in a global network called the International Domestic Workers Federation. The International Domestic Workers Federation, it's a global movement for domestic workers, and it organizes in more than 55 countries globally. So what the International Domestic Workers does, it streamlines the welfare of domestic workers to its affiliates in country level. So they've been developing a lot of ideas, a lot of advocacy and campaign materials towards achieving better lives for domestic workers. So it has become our platform to even offering also technical support on how we can approach governments to push for improvement of welfare of domestic workers. Realize change does not rely on us independently as a union. So we have a network of civil society organizations and human rights for protection of domestic workers, issues around policy formulation, looking at the current laws and the gaps that we have that are insufficient to address the problems of domestic workers, looking at the status of domestic workers in the country, carrying out research on the plight of issues of gender-based violence within the sector. So all these provide a platform for us to collectively have a voice on how better. It's a lot of struggles that we really need to combine synergies to push the government to recognize us. And we, of course, our Federation of Workers, which is the central organization of trade, is realizing our goal. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you so much for the exchange that we managed to get here today. If you would like to give us your final statements or give some comments or messages, and then maybe we can have this long-awaited drink after such heavy topics this evening.
Not a long statement. I think we can see in all the talks that Carrick is really underestimated, and we have to, yes, we have to change. No more to say.
I would like to point out one thing that hasn't been discussed here much yet, but it's a sort of underlining theme for me that's very important. If we appeal to feminist solidarity and the fact that all women should solidarize and that care work is the deal for all of us, then we should also really each of us personally review our feminism when it comes to employing the global chains of care, because women who call themselves feminists can have their dirty laundry done by other poorer women. That's one of the things that should be in the forefront of all of our minds. And other than that, I'm really happy that we could get together here. And for me, getting new perspectives from different countries also points out how the habits might be different, but the problems and the underlying principles are still the same.
Oh, and I call for solidarity in supporting domestic workers. Care workers are humans, and as we talk about dignity and we talk about human rights, let's take into consideration that before anything else, they are human who are considered to be people of value, people of worth, people that really need to be treated with the value that their work accords to them. So I call on everyone who's watching us, everyone who's listening to us from wherever they are, support domestic workers, respect domestic workers, and smile to domestic workers when you come across them, because domestic workers matter and they're workers like any other workers. Thank you so much.
can finally say hi to Ruth.